Welcome to Rafa. I'm Dr. Lee West, head minister of Rafa. Just glad to have you with us in our Bible Answer Man program. Glad you found this particular teaching. I think it's going to be applicable to so many who are going to listen to this teaching because there's so much divorce today. So the title of this is Divorce. Does it free the person or the one? Most people marry for the wrong reasons. They marry for loneliness. They marry because of lust. They marry for position. They marry for passions. They marry for out of wedlock pregnancy. They marry for family or because of peer pressure. Mainly, couples do not realize that it is a union. It's not just a getting together and see if it works. This is a divine contractual union, and God ordains it. God puts it together. I've heard ministers say that God does not sanction unsaved people's marriage. Of course he does. Anybody who does it God's way, God will honor that marriage. Now, there are certain circumstances. If a believer marries an unbeliever, then that marriage is going to have problem. But does God unify those two? Yes, they do. But can they expect monumental problems? If the one tries to live their Christian life, you're going to have problems. Prayerfully, in some of those cases, the person will, the unsaved one will come to the Lord. But as a past experience in my ministry, I've seen that just the reverse happens. The person who is saved ends up going with the unsaved person, especially if it's a married Christian woman who marries an unsaved man. Then the chances are it's going to deteriorate very rapidly. But it is a union, and God sanctions that, and he puts them together, and he can help them, but there's going to be some problems if any of those things, and others too. I just covered just a few of those. Any or all of these reasons can cause sin to enter. Neglect of the mate, financial irresponsibility. If you have one who is trying to be financially responsible and the other who's a spendthrift or throws her money away on gambling or drugs or alcohol or promiscuous living or riotous living, that marriage has a real problem. It's going to be hard to survive. Uncontrolled intercourse. There are certain things that couples may not, even though they're married, may not participate in. So those have to be considered in a marriage. Adultery or fornication, mental or sexual abuse, failure to mature together. All of these are tremendous problems. The ease of getting a divorce is so prevalent today. You can get a divorce in much quicker than you can get married sometime. A lot of times the thought of incompatibility is the lie that is commonly used for divorce. And in very few cases can I think where incompatibility, that just means that, well, she wanted to do it her way and I wanted to do it my way, or I wanted to do it my way and she didn't come in line. So we're not compatible. So we're going to get a divorce. All these things should have been considered during the courtship process. Now, God does permit divorce, but he does permit it under certain specific reasons. And I would suggest that people considering divorce get together with a competent pastor who can address these things. And there's so many kids in the pulpit, chronologically and maturely, that you're going to have a hard time getting good counseling or suggestions from a pastor today. So you better search one out. Hopefully you have a good pastor anyway who's mature in the Lord, and not just some of these people who stand in the pulpit and give you a sermonette every Sunday. But that's another subject. But God desires for the marriage to be until death separates. Marriage is for this life only. It's not for the world to come. It's not for Christians to come. It's for this time. So that can be a comfort to people, even if they had a wonderful marriage. When they can come to that, sometimes it's a freeing aspect for them. Marriage isn't earthly, but it's not an eternal union. Now, God permits divorce for adultery, or if somebody, a rape. The woman does not have to carry illegal seed in her body. She can if she wishes to. I add that, but she is not forced to, or by a parent forcing their will upon the child and the child getting pregnant. That is a heinous crime, but that child does not have to carry that stigma or that seed. God protects seed. God permits marriage if a person violates their marital oath, because they violated the oath, and God puts that in a sexual point. It ties it to a sexual thing, but there's nothing that happened in a marriage that doesn't end up affecting the sexual union. There's nothing that I remember. There may be, but I've crossed a lot of these paths. If there is physical or emotional damage to that one, then that now, if it's just emotional, that kind of gets into a touchy area. That's why you need a pastor. But if there's physical damage done to the mate, then that's grounds for separating. And now you don't have to do that, but it's available to you in the eyes of God. If you do things God's way, it will work. It will work. And that I'm going to close out this thought with you, just with that saying. If you look for your wife or mate in the wrong place, then you're going to have to put up with that. If you take a mate out of a druggy situation, well, there's many old sayings about that. If you marry an alcoholic, knowing they're an alcoholic, you're buying into trouble. If you married a person who was guilty of adultery or fornication with you, well, stand by. You're just opening the door, because there's an old saying, if they'll do it with you, they'll do it to you. So all of the things we've talked about today, most of them are just common sense things. If you control your emotions and you love your mate and you're faithful to your marriage, you won't have any problems to speak of. You may have some bumps in the road, but God can bring those things together. Glad you tuned into it. Glad to have you with us. This is Dr. West. Until we meet again through one of these, or through a seminar, or some of our pulpit fillings. Lord bless you.